for all.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is our spotlight on Jefferson Science Magnet School. Ms. Keys.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lyons. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Spotlight section of our agenda for Tuesday, October 7th, 2014. The Board of Education is proud to honor Jefferson Science Magnet School, recently named a National Blue Ribbon School for 2014 by the U.S. Department of Education. Jefferson will be part of the 287 public as well as 50 private schools to be honored at a national recognition ceremony on November 10th and 11th in Washington, D.C. Jefferson was one of 48 schools recognized under the program as Exemplary Achievement Gap Closing School. This designation is reserved for the highest performing schools in closing achievement gaps between a school's subgroups and all students over the past 5 years, or that are making notable improvements in closing the achievement gap. Blue Ribbon schools demonstrate that all students can achieve to high levels. With the 2013 through 14 enrollment of 577 students, Jefferson truly reflects the rich diversity of our community, Norwalk. 71% of its students come from Hispanic or African American families. In addition to English, Jefferson students represent 12 other languages. 68% of Jefferson students are eligible for free or reduced lunches. With an inquiry-based teaching and learning approach, Jefferson holds very high standards for all its students and fosters a culture of collaboration as well as innovation that has allowed it to exceed its expectations. The school lives by its motto, "We help each other," and a collaboration with the Maritime Aquarium, as well as Stepping Stones Museum for Children, Jefferson combines a very rigorous and engaging science-based curriculum with hands-on experiences that leverage our unique local resources here in Norwalk. Partnerships with GE Capital, Pepperidge Farm, Norwalk Hospital, and the City of Norwalk's Health Department offer enrichment activities for both students as well as families. Jefferson is truly a unique and caring environment. Their mission is to motivate as well as to challenge and to support every single student. This very prestigious award affirms the hard work of students, educators, families, and community members in creating a safe and welcoming school where all students master challenging content. In its 32-year history, the National Blue Ribbon Schools program has bestowed this coveted award on just under 7,900 of American schools. On behalf here of the entire Board of Education, we say congratulations to our principal at Jefferson, Principal John Reynolds, and to the entire staff, and I see many of the teachers and the staff right here, students and families of Jefferson Magnet School. I'd like to see if we can have Mr. Reynolds and any of the staff that's here tonight, or even the families, if you want to come up to the podium and just talk to us about what you've all done to make this come to fruition. And we here are very, very proud of what you've accomplished. And it's not only an accomplishment for Jefferson Magnet School, it's an accomplishment for all the schools in Norwalk and our community here. So thank you, Mr. Reynolds, for speaking.
Thank you all. A big special thanks to all of the adults that work at Jefferson. I want to really include the certified staff, the non-certified staff, the lunch ladies, the crazy crossing guard, and especially Kathy Gallagher, who's not here tonight. Kathy is the assistant principal who really hard work with myself has really gotten us to where we are today. It's the success at Jefferson is truly about these groups of people and these individuals working tirelessly every day to push kids to grow both academically and social-emotionally. When I was hired about 12 years ago, we were in a different room, one of the Board of Ed members shook my hand and pulled me close and said, "John, go over there and have lots of fun and try and kick a little butt." I thought of that message tonight because I truly thought to myself, that's really how I've approached each day. It's guided me by hiring many of the staff that I have brought together that understand the need to be flexible, focus on each student's priorities and their positives, give up things that don't work and try new things that may. My entire staff has high expectations for their students and for each other. They embrace that Jefferson is the largest amount of poverty, the largest enrollment, the most languages spoken. And they look at these characteristics as opportunities, not limitations or excuses. My staff also recognizes that in order for a school to close the achievement gap, and to note, we are only the first school in 3 years in Connecticut to be nominated for that, so congratulations.
Yeah.
That the kids, that all kids must feel loved and cared for and engaged in their learning first. Without this feeling, no true change occurs. These are just a few of the characteristics of what guide us each day. Our program has lots of wonderful other pieces to it that all add up to student success, but it's really the folks that deliver that and talk and work with the kids each day that I wanted to acknowledge tonight. So a big thank you.
John, if you can come up and accept the certificate on behalf of Jefferson Magnet School. And all the families that are out there and the staff, if you could just wave hello that you're here tonight. There you go. Thank you.
There's an old saying that whatever is possible. And what you people from Jefferson have shown is that closing the gap is possible. And we've set this as our primary goal for the school system for all of our schools by 2020. And I hope we can emulate what you've achieved at Jefferson and accomplish it throughout the rest of the system. Thanks for leading the way. All right, next item on the agenda, public comments. Mr. Kasimis.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. When I call your name, please come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. We ask that you keep your comments civil. When you have 30 seconds left, I'll wave my hand. Also, we need your name and the address when you get there. First, we have Miss Angela Harrison.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to Jefferson. That's very good news. I hope that Rowayton can learn something from you. I would like to
I need your name and address just for the
I'm
recording.
sorry,
That's
Angela
okay.
Harrison, Sable Street,
Thank you.
Norwalk, South Norwalk. I would like to know, lately you've been having a lot of good discussions about making parents feel welcome and things. So I just find it strange that your director of the human relations is never here at a lot of the meetings to hear what the public is saying or what they're feeling or going on. So I'm just wondering if ever there'll be a time where he'll be asked to come here and to participate, seeing that that is the person who a lot of the community has to deal with. It would make sense that Bruce Morris would be here, but I don't know. But I just wanted to say that I hope a lot of things come into fruition that what Dr. Rivera was saying, things you like to implement. I hope they do come to pass. Because I still am very disappointed as a parent of Norwalk. A lot of things that happened to me and my family, I haven't seen anything rectified at any of these schools. So it is a disappointment. It's good to know that there are some schools that are striving to do better and be more welcoming to everyone in this district. So, but like I said, a lot of the complaints go out to Bruce Morris, and we hardly ever see him here. So I think twice a month, it's not that hard if that's your job. And that's primarily what you do. So maybe that's something in the future that the community can see. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Miss Carolyn Fuller.
Just the blue ribbon.
to Dr. Rivera, to the members of the Board of Ed.
Sorry, name and address just for the
I'm
record.
going to give it.
Okay.
My name is, I have it written down. My name is Carolyn Fuller. I reside at 100 Stewart, S-T-U-A-R-T Avenue in Norwalk. I've been a resident of Norwalk for over 50 years, and I want to give a shout out to my Jefferson family. And everything's been said. Mrs. Keys read a wonderful synopsis of Jefferson, but I'm coming from the heart. Boots on the ground there every day, and those people are there every day also. We just want you to know that we work very, very hard, and we did work hard to achieve this honor. And this is a great honor, not only for Jefferson, but for the city of Norwalk, because in Connecticut, we were the only elementary school to be recognized with this award. Now, that's statewide. So it goes to show that we are doing our job. And I just want to say there's an African proverb, we all know it, takes a village to raise a child. So we want you to know the village is over at 75 Van Buren Avenue in Norwalk. And we would love to see some of the members of the board come through and see what we're doing over there. We're doing great things. We have community partners, the Maritime Center, GE. We have an after-school program for junior biologists. You just need to come and see what we're doing. And we have over 600 students crammed into Jefferson over there on the hill. We are teaching in closets. We're teaching in the custodian's old office. We are doing it, but we need you to come. We know you work. We know you have other things on your agenda. But one day, just take a ride over to Jefferson and come and see the wonderful things that we're doing. We are a Blue Ribbon school. Thank you.
That's all that's signed up for public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kucinich. Next item is Superintendent's report. Dr. Rivera.
For this evening, for my report, one of the things that we as a board and as a community and as a district have embraced is the importance of literacy, particularly in the early ages of a child's development. And we adopted a curriculum back in February. We recognized then that it was much more than just a curriculum. It had everything to do with how we're supporting children 24/7, after school, Saturdays, how we engage parents and support parents in helping their children at home. There is much more to what we recommended. One of the important elements of the set of recommendations that the board unanimously endorsed had to do with a 9-point plan, one of which included making certain that we were monitoring the progress of every single one of our children on a regular basis. And more importantly, that whenever we, through this monitoring, determined that a child needed appropriate intervention, that we would be able to provide that intervention and have appropriate and more effective interventions in place. And I'm proud and pleased that teachers and folks from Jefferson are here tonight because they understand exactly what I'm talking about. So for tonight, I've asked our new K-5 literacy director, Maureen Ruby, to come up for 10 or 15 minutes and just give a brief overview of some of the progress steps with regard to our K-5 literacy program, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to introduce you to Maureen Ruby, who is our new director for K-5 literacy.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. One of the things that's really at the heart and soul of any comprehensive literacy program is being able to monitor how you're progressing, and primary to that is understanding where your learners are. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and you have a packet, and I'm on the left-hand side of the packet, is the importance of having a comprehensive assessment program. And to my coming here, I know the district spent a lot of time and effort, and the schools, the principals, and the teachers in the majority of the schools were working with a system called M-Class, which you may or may not have heard of, but it's a system that is supported through technology and allows the teachers to assess the children on a couple key components of literacy. And those tests are screening tests. And so just like if you had a time test, for tuberculosis, or you weren't feeling well and you had your temperature taken, they just tell you, as a screening, who's at risk and who isn't. So those are not the only types of tests that you need to really know where a student is. This first handout on the left-hand side lists the 4 types of assessment that you need to have in a comprehensive literacy plan. So working with your consultant, Dr. Gillis, who provides professional development through through one of the grants in the district, we met with the site directors who are at each of the 12 elementary schools and talked about assessment, looked at the 4 types of assessment that we know have to be part of a reading program, and then looked at the assessments that were currently being given in the district. And what we realized was that we had screening assessments, but we didn't really have diagnostic assessments, and we weren't using the progress monitoring assessments that were available. So in looking at what we would have for a comprehensive literacy assessment plan this year, we had to take into consideration these 4 types of assessment. So you'll see underneath on the left-hand side, a 3-page handout. And the first page is kindergarten, the second page is grades 1 through 3, and the third page is 4 and 5. And what we've outlined on these pages lets you know that we are indeed making every effort to make sure that our system of assessment is comprehensive, so that we have on here the screening assessments, which are like taking the temperature of the student to find out, just to separate who's healthy and who's not healthy. Now, those of you who have ever had your temperature taken or had a sick child and had that child have a fever, if a child has 103 fever, the only thing you know is that that child is probably not healthy. But a temperature of 103 doesn't really tell you what you're going to do. You don't know what that means. It could be a virus, it could be a bacterial infection, it could be a tumor. When you take your child to the doctor, you need to have further assessments. So those are diagnostic assessments. So when we use M-Class, the M-Class system with DIBELS and TRC, which is a text reading assessment, and a child is not at what we call benchmark, we need to find out why. And so we need to do further assessment. And so working with the site directors that day and Dr. Gillis, we talked about the different types of assessments that would be available to us that we could do in a quick fashion, but not too quickly, because if we're looking to find out the root cause of a problem, we do have to spend some time. And so we have diagnostic assessments now on our plan. Once you have a student who's at risk, just like if you have a child who's at risk, think about if you've ever had a child who had an ear infection, doctor prescribes medication, but that's not the end of it. The doctor makes you come back. Doctor wants to look in that child's ear, and some doctors use a machine called a tympanogram to check to see if there's still fluid or pressure in the child's ear. Well, that's progress monitoring. If you were in the hospital, they wouldn't just put you in a room and leave you there. They come in and they progress monitor. They take your temperature, your blood pressure, your vital signs. So we have progress monitoring on the assessment list because we want to ensure that any student that isn't where they should be in reading gets checked on a regular basis for 2 reasons. We want to be able to report to the child and to the parents that the progress is being made. And if progress isn't being made, we need to intervene. So it's no more like we did years gone by, where you'd have a test in the beginning of the year and a test in the end of the year, a great big test. You lose 9.5 months in between there where you need to be progress monitoring to check to see that the child is making the progress that we expect so that they will achieve the outcomes that we know they need to achieve. This plan is what's going to help us get to the goal of having all children reading by grade 3. So there's a lot of other material that's on the right-hand side of this folder for you to take home. I'm available to talk to you, to meet with you again, but that's really an overview of what the assessment plan looks like. Does anyone have any questions on that?
So will you still use M-Class as your kind of initial?
Absolutely. That's just a diagnostic, a screening test, and we screen or benchmarks, it's the same term, 3 times a year.
And then, that's a great program, Mom. I think we're doing it now at all of our.
All
elementary
12 schools, yes.
And it's all there in digital format. It can email the parent with an update. How are things? This is what you should work
Correct.
on. How are these next kind of the diagnostic tools? Are they as well packaged as M-Class?
Those are not digital. Those are one-on-one, administered to the students one-on-one by hand, paper and pencil recording. And we are working with technology to be able to put those results into SchoolNet, which is, the new platform that's going to be talking to PowerSchool. And so eventually what we want is for a teacher to be able to open up the dashboard through PowerSchool and through SchoolNet, be able to see all the data on a child's reading and math and whatever else we're putting into that system. And to be able to, if years from now, if a child's in 5th grade and they've been in the district, to be able to, since they started school, be able to look on that dashboard and be able to see their history of reading progress. So if a child is having problems in 5th grade, the 5th grade teacher will be able to look and see, oh, there were some blips on the radar, so to speak. In 3rd grade, they were having problems with a certain area of literacy. And then it improved, but then it was never really a strong area. It's going to help them zero in on using historical data to help the child.
And then if I can ask one more question, what about, how does ELL tie into this? Is that?
The English language learners would be getting the same assessments. The students that are in the dual language school, the dual language program, we've been working with the site director there, and we have parallel assessments in Spanish that he's really been spearheading. He's done a great job with the principal there.
Thank you.
Okay, just for clarification purposes, for any given, let's take a first grade child. Obviously, we want to have benchmark data that we are looking at system-wide. So we talk about the M-Class, TRC, and DIBELS, correct?
Correct.
How much more time would some of this additional diagnostic testing require, and would every child have to need some of this additional?
Great question. So in a healthy population, only the few children that would have a temperature would need to have further diagnostics. In terms of academics, when we're in a better situation where we don't have as many children who are at risk, we will be spending very little time on diagnostics. The diagnostic tests don't take a lot of time to give individually, but if you have a lot of children that need diagnostic tests, it's going to require the teachers to do a little bit more of assessment than they have been doing. So one of the tests that I would cite for you is something called a CORE phonics survey. CORE is just the name of the company. And it's an assessment if a child fails to reach benchmark on oral reading in the M-Class system, you're going to look and see that score, and you're going to want to go in and find out what are the actual types of words that child has not mastered the decoding. So you give this test, it would take probably 5 minutes to administer. It may take a teacher who's never done it before 8 minutes, but what it's going to allow you to do is not put a child in a group where they're going to be getting instruction on stuff that they already know, but allow you to pinpoint specifically the word types that they have problems with. And so this ends up, you might spend time on the testing, but it's going to save time on the instruction, and it's going to allow you to give exactly the type of instruction that you need to give. The other really big thing about this is when you have children that are in a group getting instruction, and they don't really need all the instruction, but they have to be in that group, we know what they do. They are kids. They're going to act out. behavior problems often arise when kids are sitting in groups, being asked to do things or listen to things that really aren't meeting their needs, and that's a typical reaction. But when kids are, and we heard about engagement, it's so important. When kids are getting exactly what they need, they're more engaged. So it decreases behavior issues, and by identifying the exact type of instruction that kids need, you end up saving time.
All right.
The other thing I wanted to add on to the assessment piece is with the reading program that the board adopted, there are unit assessments that go along with that. And the nice thing about these assessments is that they align with Common Core. In the teacher's guides for the tests, for every single question, it tells you exactly what standard it's assessing, and it tells you the level of difficulty that the question is, and it aligns with the Common Core. So the combination of the assessments that we use for checking to see how healthy kids are in terms of their literacy, and the assessments that we use to assess how well they're learning what's being taught in the program should be, really get us to where we want to be. And if you're interested in seeing any of these things, please call me, come over.
All right.
We, just like when you go to visit Jefferson, stop by Central.
I think we're going to ask you, the curriculum agenda is pretty full for October and November, but I was thinking maybe at the December meeting, we can maybe come to the curriculum
Okay.
meeting and give us some more detailed update on the whole program.
Well, and we'll have to do that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Goes superintendent's report. Okay, next we'll move on to 6 actions. First one is consent calendar. Let's see, this is item 6.2A, personnel. B, approval of trips. There are 4 trips. I should note that item 1, the Nathan Hale trip, is being withdrawn by Nathan Hale. They are going to still go to the program, but they're going to rework this application and bring it back to us. So the consent calendar would then be to table B1, but approve B2, 3, and 4, along with 2A. So Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar. Mr. Chirmati moves, Mr. Sims seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the consent calendar, please indicate. 2, 3, 4, unanimous, thank you. Okay, so personnel is approved, tabled, approved. All right. Item 3 is approval for designation of October as ADHD Awareness Month. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the resolution in the packet. Mr. Kasimis moves. Is there a second? Ms. Harris seconds. I know Mr. Spar had submitted this and asked us to act on it. Jeff, you want to briefly bring us up to speed on the resolution?
I want to thank the board for taking this up. Also, I want to call to everyone's attention that the mayor has also signed a proclamation. So it's, and I thank the mayor for that. It's a united front between the board and the city. Many years ago, when my son was first at Columbus Magnet School with the mayor's granddaughter, cute little red hair, we had gone to the classroom, and we were waiting to see the kids come in from recess. And the kids that were coming in from recess we were looking for my son, and they were looking over our shoulder, and I heard one of the kids say, "Here come the bad boys." And I looked behind me, and my son was being taken out of the room where he hadn't joined the kids at recess. And so I spoke to the teacher, and I wanted to know what was going on. And they said, "Well, Mr. Spar, your son never sits in his seat. He doesn't pay attention. He always interrupts. He's disruptive to the class, and he's like impulsive, and we just can't." And upon further examination of the situation, we were told that he was being sent down to the principal's office 2 to 3 times a day, and they had never been told to us. My purpose of saying that is not to complain, and I think that I would encourage all the parents that if they come across a situation like that, rather than to take on attack the school program, to try to work with the school together to have a unified front to address that. And that's why I'm thanking the board for this. As a result, rather than
getting angry at the school, I decided we should try to work with the school to have a program, like this, to have a declaration of ADHD awareness. So that's the purpose for me saying that I want to thank the board. The governor is also signing a proclamation. We're going to have a presentation of the proclamation in Norwalk next Friday, and the mayor's going to be there. And one of the things that I want to say is the prevalence of ADHD in our society is that there's 5.1 million children that have been diagnosed with ADHD in the group of ages 4 to 17. Boys are more likely than girls to be affected by this. They're at 12.1% compared to 5.5%. Also, ADHD is non-discriminatory. The population of white children who have been diagnosed with ADHD is 8.7%, whereas the population of black and African American children is 9.8%. Hispanic and Latinos are 5%. There's a lot of co-occurring conditions. 41% of the kids who have ADHD might also be found to have what's known as oppositional defiant disorder, which comes from a lot of frustration of not being able to sit down and to pay attention, and they get pigeonholed as being the bad kids. There's also 22% of those with ADHD suffer mild depression, and 15% of those children with ADHD also have general anxiety disorder. That says nothing of the emotional distress that the parents go through. The purpose of me saying is I want to thank the chairman and I want to thank the board for voting on this, just having a proclamation acknowledging the existence of ADHD. And I know Brenda Williams was nice enough to put this into a format. I would also say that Christine Bradley of the Norwalk Public Library has put a big display out there for people, and there's different websites that they can go to. So my purpose of standing up was actually to thank you in person for doing that, and also the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion, please indicate. It is unanimous, thank you. Okay, next, item 4, appointment for principal of Cranberry Elementary School. A couple of members had asked if we could perhaps take this, discuss this in executive session before voting. So without objection, we'll move that into the executive session with the litigation matter. So we'll come back to that after exec session. Also, I should just note that I got an email late this afternoon. I forwarded it to the board, but it was around 5:30. That in the exec session, we're not going to be discussing the DeMoss and Oscar Williams cases. They both got pushed back, and the council noted how big our agenda was, and he suggested that we could take it up a month from now and it wouldn't affect anything. So those 2 cases will be off the exec session. The only one in the exec session will be the Diaco case. All right, next item is, let's see, approval of goals and performance compensation plan for superintendent. This is the plan that's in the packet. Chair would entertain a motion to approve that plan. Is there a motion? Mr. Kasimis moves. Second, Mr. Chiramonte. Is there discussion? Ms. Mosby.
I wasn't here to participate with the executive session of the goals and performance that was put in place. So just letting you know that because I didn't have the opportunity to weigh in on it, I'm going to abstain when the vote comes up.
Okay. Dr. Rivera, why don't you, could you just, for the benefit of the public, discuss the goals and how they relate to the strategic plan?
Sure. Well, first of all, in accordance with my performance for the board, there are 2 components to an evaluation. There's an evaluation process that the board completes, and there's a secondary piece, which is the alignment of performance compensation with more quantitative measures. And it seemed to make sense that if we were going to have quantitative measures of performance, that they should be linked to the goals that we've established in our strategic plan, which is the same goals that I have shared with school principals, which is what they in turn have shared and are looking at in terms of their own student learning objectives. And so we're trying to create alignment between how we're going to hold ourselves accountable for performance and what performance looks like. So just as Jefferson is a perfect example for being here, has closed the achievement gap and reduced the percentage of performance between different subgroups. This is what is in sync with goals that I proposed. So I proposed 3 sets of goals. One, which is to monitor the performance of children on track for reading at grade 3. So I'm going to actually be reporting out on progress from the beginning of the year to end of year on the M-class assessment. Similarly, I'm going to be reporting out on how well we've closed the achievement gap with the same M-class assessment, looking at the performance of Hispanic children and African American children at each one of the grade levels. And there's been a measure that's been assigned for that. In addition, at the middle school level, looking at the performance of children or young adolescents from grade 8 to grade 9, making sure that they are ready on track for 9th grade. Again, not only their performance, but also the performance of subgroups and the preparedness of subgroups. And then a third one that I attached, just trying to drive the importance of 9th grade and making sure that all of our 9th graders are monitored very carefully and that they are on track for 10th grade. All of our 9th graders, not just some, all of our 9th graders, including subgroups. That has been broken down as well. So there's a quantitative measure, and what I've proposed is, I think my contract says up to 20%, blah, blah, 20% compensation for bonus. I've proposed, up to 6% if I meet 90% of my, if we get 100%, it would be 6%. If we meet 90% of those achievement measures and those gains, it would be a 3% bonus. So I've tried to align it all with our strategic goals and how that ripples right down through the system.
Any comments, questions from board members? I will say that I'm very supportive of this. Excuse me. We put this provision in the contract when it was negotiated as an option for the board. It was not mandated, but we gave ourselves the option to do this. And we wanted Dr. Rivera to have a year on the job before we set goals and started doing parameters. We wanted him getting comfortable with the job. We wanted getting comfortable with him. It is considered a good compensation package when you align the CEO's goals with A, definable, measurable objectives, and B, objectives that mesh with the strategic plan. We had a long meeting at the curriculum committee last week where we looked at a whole bunch of issues about raising student achievement. In particular, concerns were raised that, as Ms. Harris pointed out, that all the stuff that we're doing at the elementary schools, we're not worried about those kids. They are on a new program that's going to make them sail through the remaining years. But what about middle school kids, high school kids? These goals tie into middle school and high school as well as elementary school. So we're trying to push for improved achievement at all of the levels of the school system. And so I think this compensation plan fits what people can consider to be the ideal way of aligning CEO bonuses to measurable goals that fit the strategic plan. So and as I've noted, we didn't start with a 20% bonus, which was the maximum allowed by the contract. The 6% is a reasonable bonus number to get this started. And the goals are fairly substantial. Dr. Vera has to hit 100% of the goals that we're approving here to get a 6% bonus. If he hits 90% of the goals, he gets a 3% bonus. If it falls in at 89% or below, he gets no bonus. So it's a pretty, it's a high bar, but he's willing to take the shot at it. And I'm confident that, particularly with places like Jefferson, to glom onto and figure out what they're doing right and duplicate it. And we should shamelessly copy what you do because it works. I think these are achievable goals. So I hope the board will support it. Any other discussion? Yes?
I
Ms. Keys?
absolutely agree with what Mr. Lyons just stated. Also, I think we focus on a lot on our elementary school children, which is very important, but also our middle school and our high school children, especially the kids that are in high school that are in 12th grade ready, that they're ready and prepared, career and college ready by the time they leave 12th grade. Many of our students take honors, AP classes, some just aren't ready for college. We need to make sure that they are ready for college. So I absolutely support this plan that we have put together.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? All right, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the goals and performance compensation plan, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? Abstentions? 2. All right, 5 in favor, none opposed, 2 abstentions. Motion carries. The plan is approved. All right, next item is approval of collective bargaining agreement with NASA, which is the administrators union. The materials are in the packet. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the contract.
Mike stepped out.
Where did Mike go?
Stepped out with Bruce. Oh, Bruce is here. He
All
stepped
right.
out.
Why don't you see if you can find him, and why don't we pass on this, and we'll come back when the chairman of negotiations returns to the room. Okay. Let's see, we'll go to item 7, approval of revisions to policies. My understanding is that number 4, policy 1240, is going to be tabled
Correct.
for further consideration by the committee. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve policy amendments to policy 3160, 6146, and 5117, with 1240 tabled and referred back to committee. Is there such a motion? Mr. Chairmonti moves. Second? Mr. Barbas seconds. All right, Ms. Keys, you want to bring us up to speed on these policy amendments?
We did discuss, and also Mr. Dodona is here as well. You can also explain this if you'd like to come up and talk about it, but policy 3160, we did discuss transfer of funds between categories, and I believe it was 10,000, or Mr. Rudel, Rich, if you want to discuss that too? That would be great.
We discussed it both at the Finance Committee and the Policy Committee. The requirement is a cap of $10,000, but not to exceed a cumulative $10,000 into an account, and anything over $10,000 would come to the full board with a written explanation for approval, just as we do now.
Okay, so as I understand it then, that what that policy amendment would do is say that the superintendent has the authority to make transfers up to $10,000 without needing board approval. Anything at or above $10,000 comes to us with an explanation. And I believe you proposed an amendment to that to make it cumulative?
Cumulative, yeah. On one line item.
Right. So you can't,
So you can't take 10 from here, 10 from here, 10 from here, and create a whole new position without us knowing about it.
Right.
And just to keep everybody honest, it's not that no one's going to do anything dishonest, but
Well, and it keeps the board advised
Exactly.
if something significant like that is happening.
checks and balances.
And we had a lengthy discussion during our policy committee, which was kind of back and forth, but we did decide if it was 10,000 or under, it can come through anything 10,000 or over, has to get prior approval.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Yes,
Yes,
Ms. Mosby.
I contacted Vinny Mastaro up at CABE. He's the Senior Staff Associate for Policy Services. And I was able to go in and look at some of the CABE's policy, because that's basically where a lot of our policies, you know, underlying most of our policies here and with most districts. And CABE, you know, that's a Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. And I noticed that on the policy that was on here, which I'm glad that we are tabling it, because I was going to sit and ask why it was under action item when it should have been under like information or report, and go back to the committee a couple of times.
Wait, I'm sorry, which, one of them is being tabled, right? 1240?
Right.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Number 7, all of them are being tabled, right?
No, the motion is to table item 4,
That's number 4.
policy 1240, and adopt the other 3.
Oh, okay, well then, good, then, you know what, then I can address all of them. I can address the simple fact that why are all these policies under actions at this time when it should have fell under information and reports? And I guess I need to address that with the chair, Heidi, to find out, why it skipped over information reports where you don't have input from other board members, you don't have community public input. And I wanted to make sure that I was clear, so I did contact CABE to find out what the process and procedure is. And Mr. Mastaro told me what the process was. And basically, you're supposed to, when you have a policy meeting, with any revision or policies, you're supposed to come to the board and give your report, but no action shall be taken at that meeting. So that means this should never have been placed on action, as an action item. It should go in an information report. They said sometimes you can go through a couple of different meetings just with everyone involved so that we can all have input, because our policies need to have every single stakeholder involved as well as board members. And just 2 or 3 board members sitting in a committee deciding that these are the changes, because this is one of our primary duty as board members is definitely setting and implementing and setting policies. And to have that opportunity, put here as an action item without even coming to the board, talking and have further discussion and having the public be part of it, I think, basically is a violation. So I just want to just put that out there and let you know. And I did call someone because I figured Mr. Mastaro, he's a senior staff associate of policy services at CABE, so he would know. And he's in charge of all the different districts that's in Connecticut. So in order for us to be compliant and go with the other district, we need to sit here and look at these things. And he gave me where to go to get all the information, which I have it here. So I'm quite familiar with what's going on. And I was just going to say, I thought when you tabled, my mistake, I thought you were going to table all of them until we can go back and do this the correct, proper way. But,
Well, I think we can certainly have a discussion on those items today and then refer them over to a later meeting, so there's no vote tonight. Are any of these things urgent for adoption?
No, nothing on my
I think we could easily do that.
Right, yeah, go back to the committee so we can at least get the public involved, because it says here the public needs to be involved with policy changes, citizens input, suggestion, requests from board members, all that needs to be part of these things before, administrators, staff, all that needs to be part of it before we go in, because changing policies, it affects every single child in school. And we need to make sure that everyone is at the table for this. Even revisions need to be addressed in that manner. And I'm just making sure that we follow the way, the process is supposed to be followed. And I did get clarification from CABE that this is the way the process goes.
Okay. Any other comments on any of these proposals? Okay, well, why don't, to address the concern raised by Ms. Mosby, is there any objection to tabling this to a subsequent meeting?
Would it be the next meeting?
Could be the next meeting?
May I?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we then just move these to information reports?
Yes.
Make them compliant for today?
Right.
Well, they're already on the agenda. I mean, we can discuss them and then just vote to send them back to committee.
Why are we sending them back to committee?
Or we can table them to the next meeting.
Why don't we send it back to committee?
But why? My question is why?
So that people can come in and have input. This meeting, I believe, was just put on the agenda for 1 or 2 days, and now a decision. And so the public have not had the opportunity to come in and weigh in on
I
these
understand.
policies.
I thought typically we put policies or any action item under information reports first for 2 weeks, and then the next meeting we vote on them. Is that correct?
If it deals with policy, according to Mr. Mastaro, if it deals with policies, we can go into committee meetings a couple of times before it comes to a full vote of the boards. That means we can have discussions at the table, we can have another policy meeting, and if we feel that we need 2 policy meetings, we can have 2 policy meetings. And then once we get everyone voice opinion at that table, then it comes to the board for a full vote.
I understand. I guess my question is, what is wrong with the policy that we have to take it back? That's all I'm asking.
And what's wrong, the process, the process.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the policies.
I don't know until we bring it to
Well, that's what I'm saying,
the
let's put it in information reports, and we could talk about the policies, And if there's nothing
We
wrong
can
with them.
talk about it, then we can take it back to the policy committee, and then we can sit there and talk about it more and bring the citizens in, the public in, so that they can have their input as well. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but just to take it and move it right into an action item without going through the process.
After you're done. I'm sorry, Artie, keep going. I just wanted to talk when you're done. Speaking.
I would say bring them to, let's move them to information reports, let's talk about them and discuss them, and then see where we go from there. If it needs to go back to committee, then it goes back to committee.
Otherwise, we just
Well,
bring it back
otherwise
at
it's-
another
it's-
meeting.
We're just having another meeting, and it's not for another month.
And plus, we have members of the public here now, so this is an open forum if we want to.
No, that's, it's not the same, and if, I'm just stating the process. If you guys don't want to do it
No,
that
no,
way, that's
no,
fine, I'm just stating
not
it.
dis-
That's
I'm not
all, I'm just
disagreeing
stating the
with-
process. Just having a couple people here, I don't see a problem with it going back to the committee and having people come out. At that point, you'll have now more knowledge is being put out there on the process. And I spoke with Mr. Mastoro, and very, very nice guy, because I met him when I went to the orientation of CAVE, you know, when I first when I first came on board, and I met him. And so, and I called him, and I asked him, because I wanted to make sure, and he made it very clear. And, you know, he said, you can have a couple of meetings, you can, but just to sit here and just take this right now and just move it into something, then go for an action item, that's,
Yes?
I agree not to do an action item now, but what we typically do is we put it on the agenda in a policy meeting, and it was open to the public.
Anyone
And
can
nobody from the public showed up.
For anyone to come. And we've
And
had.
so we had these, you know, for people to
Posted.
come and see posted. And so I know from the past, what we do is put on information reports. After the policy committee votes on it, then it comes to the full board for their input. And that's, I think that's where we need to go today, is let the full board give their input, whatever it is. Don't vote on it today. I think that's the proper procedure here. Information reports, and then we'll go from there. If you have an objection, then it'll go back to the committee, if there's a change.
just because something was done a certain way in the past does not make it right.
I'm talking, I've been on it for 3.5 years, and I think that's how we've always done it. 3.5 years.
Well,
Information
well,
reports.
We can, if you wanted to go through that process, I mean, we can discuss it, but I'm just saying that there's going to be a lot out here to discuss. And if that's, but that's not the process in a way that I was told from Kate.
But are they saying, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for you.
No, okay.
Are they saying that the board needs to give their input?
What, they said the board, they said.
Because that's where we're at, I think.
Citizens, they said that you go back, you work it out, because they said that the policies are very important.
I agree with you.
It's extremely
I don't
important.
disagree.
And for us to make revision, changes, we need to have every single stakeholder and give everyone the opportunity to sit here and make sure that, okay, let's say that you do put it back at your policy meeting again. It's out there, and the public is like 2 or 3 or whatever, then fine, then we'll address it again. We can have a conversation today with us board members sitting here, or we can have it in the policy meeting as, the policy meeting as well. But it needs to be out there, it needs to be open, it needs to be open to embrace everyone and for them to have input. At least the opportunity needs to be given to them.
Can I just interject? I mean, surely I understand, but I think the way, like Artie had mentioned, been on policy for quite a while, you don't want to go through the same process if it isn't correct, but we always have our meetings posted to the public. Any member of the public can come at any time. We had Rich Rudel there, we had Tony Dodona, we had Brenda Williams, myself, Artie, and Sherelle as well, but it's always open to the public for any type of feedback or any type of commentary. And we've had members of the public come before. So, and I know, and I think everybody else can agree with this, we know how important all these policies are. So I think it is important, let me just finish, it is important to discuss it. But we had a length, thank you, Mr. Barbas. Mr. Barbas was there as well.
I'm not even on the committee.
Yeah, and he came to visit, or came to talk as well, but we had a very long meeting. It was a productive meeting, over 2 hours, I think, discussing these over and over again. So I mean, I think my opinion, it should be on information reports where we can discuss it further. If there's things that we need to take from there and we need to bring it back to committee, that we should. But, we spent a lot of time on it. We want members of the public to come, like any of our committees, whether it's finance or it's curriculum or it's policy, negotiations, anyone to come and speak at any time.
When did you post this for the public? Was it 1 day, 2 days, a week
was-
notice?
Couple, at least
And-
4 or 5 days, I think.
And when
I don't
you
know
post-
exactly the date, but it was definitely,
Brenda, know?
Brenda, do you know the date that,
Do you know how?
It was probably posted 24 hours.
oh, okay.
Yes, it was, right, it was posted late, right.
But also, we have our meetings, unless it's canceled, and we try to give as much notice as we can, the last Tuesday of every month. I mean, it's right here, it should be, on any of these, it'll state, the next policy committee is October 28th, so anytime anybody receives this packet, they know when our meetings are.
We
It's
have
online
not-
and it's on here.
We have not been consistent with our meetings. We have had numerous of canceled meetings with the majority of the committees. Numerous. Some are six or, out of what, a 12-month time period, some are 6 or 7 meetings that have been canceled. So we can't rely on that. The fact that it was just 24 hours notice to the public, this is a policy. These are policies. The community, the public needs to be part of it. And it should not be sit here and these policy revision just by, 2 or 3 board members. And although you're bringing it here, but at least they need to have the opportunity. Just 24 hours notice, and then on top of the 24-hour notice, there wasn't anything as a backup or anything that show them, okay, these are the policies. Maybe, if they can come in and see policy and see what it is that's going to be affected. I'm not sure how that's going to be handled in the policy meeting, but the fact is that it was a 24-hour notice.
I think that's the exception to the rule. I think we normally do that much quicker than 24 hours. I mean, we usually give several days versus 24 hours.
But this is policy. The most
Policy-
important thing.
All of our committees, I think, are really important.
I know.
They're all
but-
very
but-
important.
But policy affects all of the children. It affects the community, it affects everyone.
So does curriculum. They're all, I mean,
Yes,
they're all.
I understand that, Heidi, but for just to sit here and move.
Okay,
Just to
let me,
actually-
hold a second, wait.
Instead of
Is there anybody,
information report.
anybody here who says that that feels that we need to vote on these things tonight? No, okay. So, we're not going to vote on them tonight. We'll take them up at a later meeting. They are on the agenda. It is on an opportunity for board members to discuss the substance of the proposals before we push them off to a later date for consideration. Do any board members have any comments on the substance as opposed to the process of any of these proposed policy amendments?
Can I mention one thing? Are we in agreement on the transfer of funds between categories? Does anybody want to discuss that further as far as Rich just came up
Well,
with?
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Does anybody
Okay,
have
just
any
mentioning that.
comments on the
Because we were-
substance of the
okay.
proposals?
So we know if we have to kick it back.
Okay, if we want to talk about the transfer of funds between the categories?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, then I'll have a conversation on that. I've noticed that on the, I have here the old original policy. I have here with me the new, the recommended or the tentative proposal for the revision. And then I went and I printed out, and I have CABE policy on this. And I'm just curious as to, I understand there was this part that says the board may transfer, and you took out that entire section there. And then you added a section in with the superintendent or his designee, may transfer. But that entire section is gone. And I want to know why that entire section is gone. And
Which section are you referring to?
the section, the original policy, the Board of Education may transfer any unexpended or uncontracted for a portion of any appropriation for school purposes. That entire, statement, that paragraph is gone. And then, it's been, it's going to be, or the board will be voting on, this language here, the superintendent or his designee may transfer any unexpected or uncontracted for portion of any appropriation for school purposes. So basically, instead of having the Board of Ed, it just the word superintendent or his designee, which that is okay, but I was looking at the CABE policy, and the CABE has both of theirs on theirs. They have that, because this is their way of making sure that you have your checks and balance. And so they have both. They have the Board of Education may transfer, then they have the superintendent or his designee is authorized. So it gives that option in case there's some kind of emergency situation that the superintendent needs to go in without the board approval. And I was trying to figure out, because basically, our responsibility is to be fiscally responsible as board members. And I'm not comfortable that giving up that type of authority where this is taken out, where the Board of Ed doesn't have any type of say or anything, as well as to do with transfers of categories. So, I mean, if that policy, if that wording can stay, and if you want to add something additional to it, that's fine. But just to take it out entirely, that means that you're taking the board out of this whole entire process.
Well, I think you make a good point. I think there should be general language in the policy stating that the board has the authority to transfer. I think the rest of the language probably could stay if that language was reinserted. But, right, because if this policy was adopted exactly as it's worded here, the board wouldn't have any authority to transfer funds if it decided to do so unless the superintendent brought it to the board. So I think adding that language back in at the beginning says, okay, board has the authority to do transfers. But in addition to that, the superintendent may transfer in accordance with this, and then any transfer over 10,000 comes to the full board. That doesn't seem like an unreasonable suggestion, Mr. Kasimis?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and Rich, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, number 10-222 still gives us the right to do that, am I correct?
So the state statute already states that we have that authority?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that may cover that concern on Ms. Mosby, that if we have a statutory authority to transfer, that
I
would.
know, but I prefer it in writing in our bylaws, because that's how CABE has it set up. And CABE does have a legal reference 10-222, so that's at the bottom.
Yeah, we have that.
So, right, but I'm just saying in general, I prefer that language to be part of it.
Okay.
And then on the other part,
Yeah.
we're going to look into what I
It
believe.
doesn't substantively change the powers of the board, but
No.
it would make it
Just spell it
explicit
out.
in the
Right,
policy.
it's in writing, it's there. And the other part is what you said about transfers and getting a report or whatever. I guess we need to have where we can monitor and make sure that, which you brought up.
Yeah, it's in the minutes. I asked Rich that everything under 10,000, even though we're not going to approve it, should still come to the board.
Right.
And we should still, just.
As a
so we can-
report.
As a report, correct. So that's in the minutes.
Yeah, but is that somewhere in the policy?
It's not in the policy. We chose not to write it in the policy, but
Well,
we can if you
minutes,
choose to.
minutes are not there. Policy is something people pull up, so.
Correct. No, if you want, we chose not to, but if
Yes.
you want to offer
I
that,
prefer it to be in the policy, because that's what we're gonna go with. People are not gonna go back and remember to check back in, October, September, for minutes at a policy meeting that states that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about this one? All right, how about policy 6146, graduation requirements? Tony? Tony, you want to bring us up to speed on these changes?
President's board policy requires our students to take the CAP test and receive a proficient grade in CAP. And if they do not receive a proficient grade in CAP, then we have to provide additional services, meaning a grad prep course. However, there is no longer a CAP test. So therefore, we can't have that as part of our graduation requirement. So what this policy is asking for is that we remove that requirement for at least the graduating class of 216 and possibly 217 until we get further direction from the state of Connecticut. And what we are substituting
the requirement for is we are going to be adding, students will successfully complete district benchmarks, tests, midterms, and final exams. So that there will be a measurement of their ability to perform certain tasks, but we can no longer use the cap. It's not in
It doesn't
existence.
exist anymore.
They can't graduate.
Right.
So,
Policy.
so we have to make that change, or we're not going to have anybody
They
graduate
can't have anybody graduate.
in 2016.
That would not be good. Any questions?
I understand, because I wasn't at the policy meeting, I need to ask these questions. So basically, what you're saying is that all of the stuff that's in here that was with, because I know because you're waiting for the new standards, is going to be taken out. Everything to do with the graduation performance standards, all that stuff is going to be taken out, right?
Correct. All of those performance standards are related to the CAP testing.
Okay, all right, so that's going to be removed. And right now, we're just going to have this 1 page, 2 page, okay. And then 3, 4. Okay, and this is what's going to be in place until the new criteria and everything, benchmarks and stuff like that are in place, right?
Right, until we receive further direction
From the state.
from the state, also until high school reform comes in. This is all going to come in at the same time. So this is a temporary fix, so our kids can graduate in the class of 216.
Any other questions about this one, 6146? If not, policy 5117, school attendance areas. What's this one, Tony?
This is the out-of-district transfer request. By out-of-district, it's out-of-district within Norwalk. One of the reasons that's in the board policy is psychological or emotional handicaps. We, as a district, have a responsibility to, under special ed law, for child find. So if we get a letter from a doctor saying that this child cannot go to X school because of psychological or emotional reasons, we then are obligated to see if those reasons that the doctor wrote are impacting their education. So we're recommending that we receive these requests prior to April 1st, but at the receiving of these letters, we have a 504 hearing to determine if there are any handicap conditions. If so, can we handle it in regular ed, or do we have to refer that, a 504 could refer to a PPT to address the needs of those students. If we don't do that, we're not abiding by child find laws in special education.
Any questions about this one?
So,
Mr. Mosby?
so you're saying that by April 1st, an application needs to be handed in. So what happens if someone comes in after April 1st?
We then, if someone comes in after April 1st, I mean, there's a process, and we're going to need a team of teachers there. We're going to need the doctor's letters, and hopefully we'll be able to gather that team. But if it comes in the middle of the summer, we're going to have to wait till school is back in session in order to get that team back in place. We're not going to be able to honor it.
Okay, so, and if it's not being honored, that means that
The child goes to their own school, or they can go to their own home school until we can have such a meeting to determine if this child needs special services or if they could be handled under regular education with 504 accommodations. I mean, what we have done is we've always put a deadline for all of these out of districts, but as they come in, we honor them as soon as we can.
Right.
But this psychological and emotional handicap really triggers off child find in special education law, which means we as a district have to provide and see if this child needs any services. And if the child does, we're going to have to address those services
at that time.
Immediately before we could
Right.
have that transfer go in place.
Good for the language, right?
Okay,
I have to look more into this.
any other questions?
Can I reserve the right to come back to you? I'm going to look into this a little bit further. Thank you.
Okay, well, it looks like we've got two policies, 3160 and 1240, that need some tweaking. So maybe a solution here would be to refer those two back to committee, and the other two, 6146 and 5117, to come back to the next board meeting. That avoids a vote today, gives another 2 weeks opportunity for anybody who wants to research these or make comments at the board meeting to do so. So if that sounds reasonable to people, Chair would entertain a motion to amend the previous motion to table refer back to committee policies 3160 and 1240, and to table to the next board meeting policy 6146 and 5117. Is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Barbas moves, Ms. Keys seconds. Discussion? Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Okay,
Thank you.
so this goes to her back. Next. Refer back. Okay. Now we will back up to item 6, approval of collective bargaining agreement with NASA. To get the discussion underway, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the contract as in the packet. Mr. Barbas moves. Is there a second? Ms. Keys seconds. Mr. Barbas, Chairman, you want to give us a synopsis here?
Yes, so NASA is our group, it's the union that represents our administrators. It has a budget item of about just over $8.5 million. And this represents our principals, site and curriculum and instruction site experts, different SPED positions in central office. That was kind of a cross-section of our administrative staff. We did start negotiations. I've given you updates on this before. In August, just because a lot of the administrators weren't around, we couldn't do it sooner. And we did have 3 rounds of negotiations. And finally, late on September 4th, we had a mediation session. And in the end, we could not come to a settlement, so late that night, because we couldn't, we went into arbitration. We were scheduled to go into arbitration, I should say. But in the end, we did come up with an agreement, and I think the key aspects of this agreement, there were some changes in language, as well as changes in some terms. So, for example, all administrators now are going to be on direct deposit. There was what we call the severance benefit, whereby when you retired, you could get paid for unused vacation and sick days. That provision has been grandfathered now, and new employees will not have the benefits of that, will not have that ability to do so. We made a change in the insurance, the health insurance program. All our bargaining units except for 2, and this is one of them, were not on HSAs, which is the way everyone's going, because it makes insurance much more affordable. It's much more cost-effective means of providing health insurance. So HSAs are the wave of the future, and our teachers and other bargaining groups are under HSAs. And what is a bit surprising in this case is that health insurance runs from January 1 to December 31. As you know, our fiscal year and our contracts with our bargaining units run from July 1 to June 30th. So this contract would start on July 1. We couldn't change the insurance provision until January 1 of 2016. Through some negotiations that we had with the bargaining unit, they have agreed that they will actually switch to an HSA starting January 1, 2015. So that is meaningful for us, and it's kind of a win-win for both sides. As I said, there were other different types of language that were altered. Posting periods for vacancies have been reduced to 15 days. The rest are, pretty technical changes, I guess I would call them. We did alter in the insurance, the employee will be paying slightly a greater portion of their cost of the insurance, and this is something that's happening across all, not just our bargaining units, but across the country, both in the private sector and the public sector. In terms of what's called GWI, gross wage increase, we did agree for 2.5% for each year of the 3-year contract. And in addition, there are step movement would be in addition to that. So the net is, we will be paying our employees more, but the insurance is going to cost us less. So the total increase over 3 years of this new contract is just under $390,000. So it is, I think, a fair settlement to both parties. And Board of Education, I think, did get a lot of language changes that we had sought. And, there are some really some strong positive long-term benefits from some of the changes that have been made in this contract.
Okay. Any questions, comments about the contract?
And the contract has been ratified by members of the union already.
Right. Well, I'd like to compliment Chairman Barbas, who, as a volunteer, put in an enormous amount of time on this negotiation, as he has on other negotiations. This is a very positive result. It is a lot of very good administrative changes that increase the flexibility of the superintendent in terms of filling positions, moving positions, the kind of flexibility that you need to have a system of administration that can be more responsive and not sort of hidebound into previous practices. It does succeed in moving this union into the HSA, so now they've joined all of the other unions in that program, which ultimately should save a substantial amount of money. It grandfathers some of the more expensive benefits here, so current members receive them, but that we will not be giving out those benefits to new hires, I believe after July 1, 2015, which will gradually reduce those costs for city taxpayers in the future. So overall, I think it's a very good program. The total cost is, if you just took 3 years of our current spending, we'd spend about $500 million over that 3 years, and this is $389,000 against that. So I calculated it's 0.00078 of that budget. So I think in terms of keeping costs down for the taxpayers, this is a really good result. My compliments to Mr. Barbas, so you're doing a great job negotiating this.
I cannot take all the credit for this because one of our committee members, Miguel Rivas, was there with me in the front lawns, and we were here one night with Rich Rudel, our CFO, and Bob Deluski, our labor manager, for all hours. I don't know, maybe it was like 2 a.m. or something. So it wasn't just a single-handed effort. And really, at the end of the day, when we hit this impasse, it was really our superintendent who was able to have some very productive discussions with the head of the NASA union and was able to orchestrate this settlement. So it was as Mrs. Fuller said, it takes a village, and that's really what happened here.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Mosby.
I want to, first of all, thank you for sending the copy with the red line. That was very helpful.
Yep.
With determining what was added, taken out. And although, I've always been about administrators having certain type of authority, I'm a little shy about them having less of that authority in their school, but I will, support this and, this contract. But I just wanted just to get it out there that, I've always been a person that felt that administrators have a lot of, should have a lot of say in their schools, but that's there. But I just want to say thank you for sending the red line document.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm sorry,
No,
Manny,
if
please.
I could, I just to chime in here. I do know that a great deal of time, and Chairman Lyons, you congratulated or thanked Mike Barbas, and I too want to thank you, Mike, for the great deal of time that you put into this. And I do remember the meeting with Migdalia and Rich and my staff, Bob. So I want to thank you all as well. So thank you.
Okay. All right, with no further discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the contract, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? I'm sorry, you're in favor also? Okay, unanimous. Contract is approved unanimously. Thank you. All right, back to number 8, approval to establish an Education Specifications Committee to prepare an ed spec for proposed renovation portion of Roosevelt School. Manny, you want to?
Sure. This is, you probably will recall, I believe we had a discussion both at the Finance Committee and the board meeting where we discussed the surplus and the use of that surplus, the $1.6 million. We had allocated $770,000 for the renovations of the Allen Street facility, also known as the Roosevelt School formerly. And the purpose of that facility and the renovations, using that funding, that surplus for one-time expenses, which would be renovations, would enable us to hopefully get that site open and ready for children, our pre-K classes where we could assign there in late August, first week of September, a year earlier than we had anticipated. Because originally we found the site, the city brought it to our attention. We did not go after it. The city brought it to our attention, and after looking at it, we had earmarked it for a 2016 opening rather than 2015 opening. The surplus put us in a better position to move earlier, and I'm glad we did, because space in our buildings is rapidly being taken up, and I'll share with you the incredible enrollment figures at our next board meeting, or in a board report, actually. I'll send it to you within the week. But at any rate, the requirement for an ed spec committee is a requirement typically from the state, and whenever we're going to do a major renovation, and it's usually one that is always in place when there's a new school that's constructed or a major renovation that's underway, that there must be a committee that's comprised of not just staff, but we involve a community member, we involve others as part of that process who can comment on the nature of the renovations that we would be undertaking at that school. So this would simply authorize the superintendent to establish an Education Specifications Committee. We would formulate that committee fairly quickly and get them up and running, and to be able to comment on the kinds of renovations that we need at that site. By doing this, by taking this step, it also makes us, it is a requirement for when we go back to the state to seek reimbursement for a certain portion of eligible reimbursements. That is one step of the process that we're going to have to verify that we follow.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mosby?
Yes. When you make the committee selection, will you be coming back to us to let us know who is on the committee, or that's something you're just going to take and just run with it and just?
Well, the authorization tonight, we do need to get the committee up and running, so I do need to establish it, but I'm more than happy to provide to the board, either through the facilities committee or to the board as a whole, the list of who's on that committee.
Okay. And what effort have you made, or will you be making to, I guess, bring people from the community? Because I'm going to assume that some community people will be involved, or it's just the specific ones that you're going to target.
Well, that we do know it's in that particular area. That building is also shared by the senior center.
Right.
So it's highly likely we may involve a representative from that area and the neighborhood in that area. Perhaps even a parent or two who currently have children in our preschool program, because this would be for pre-K. And in addition to that, but I don't have that, I don't have the detailed list of how many members right now or what specific areas they would represent. But we want to try to be as inclusive as possible.
All right, you know, I've always been about a committee, about who's on committees and the opportunity for people to get on and about, you know, embracing everyone out there. So I'm a little, because I don't have more details on it, I'm a little skeptical. I'm not going to vote no on it because I know there's something we need. But I would like to see more later on when you start putting it together.
Yeah, I mean, we have the project is about $1 million or less. And the nature of the project, you know, is going to be some fundamental recommendations to improve the infrastructure somewhat. We are not talking about, and it's going to be in phases. We're not talking about major construction changes. Usually, an Ed Specs committee is involved in all kinds of aspects of working with an architect for the architectural design of a new facility. This is a very, very small project. And so it's going to be limited what the input is going to be about, but to the extent that we can have people involved in sharing and communicating, we'll get that input. Ms. Murray?
Dr. Corder and not Susan Walsh, but even prior to Dr. Corder, there were plenty of Ed Spec committees with renovations that were done here under the previous administration, mayor. So you're right, which was more extensive.
Yeah.
If you're talking about something like Norwalk High addition, renovation, McMahon. But just the fact of having that input, I believe, that's well-rounded and that it does acknowledge the diverse community that we actually serve. I think that should be taken into consideration. But it is not new to Norwalk for the Ed Spec and forward to the information.
Okay. All right. Chair would entertain a motion. This should say, by the way, the motion in the packet says authorize. It should say authorize the superintendent. So the chair would entertain a motion to authorize the superintendent to establish an education specifications committee to prepare an ed spec for the proposed renovation of Roosevelt School. Mr. Kasimis moves. Ms. Harris seconds. Any further discussion? All right, proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Opposed? Abstentions? That's 1. Okay, and the motion is adopted. Okay. What's next? Okay, next one is authorize superintendent to enter into agreement with firms providing best cost energy generation services. Mr. Rudel, you want to tell us about this one?
We discussed this at the last Finance Committee meeting. Our electricity budget for the year is about $2 million, and our locked-in rate is due to expire in December. Our contract coincides actually with the city's expiration, and as a way to find savings within the budget, efficiencies within the budget, we've had discussions with the city to do a joint RFP with both the city and the Board of Ed. To see if through economies of scale, through larger purchases of electricity, we can achieve better rates. And so what we're looking for is the authorization to issue an RFP jointly with the city for electricity generation services, which is essentially the kilowatt hours that we purchase for electricity within our buildings. The benefit of the RFP is that if it does yield better savings by going jointly with the city, we can go that route, but if once we issue the RFP and we find maybe it does not provide us better rates by going jointly with the city, we can purchase independently as we have in the past.
Okay, so this gives us an opportunity to piggyback on a bigger buyer maybe, but to get a better rate if there's something out there. Okay. All right, well, the chair would entertain a motion to authorize the superintendent to enter into agreement or agreements with firm or firms providing best cost energy generation services based on the joint RFP with City of Norwalk. Mr. Kasimis moves, Mr. Chirimondi seconds. Any further discussion? Ms. Harris?
One question, are you working with Guardian?
No, they're a custodian company. This is for electricity. So what we use currently right now is Direct Energy. The city uses a company called Nobles. So we would be soliciting quotes from companies similar to them.
Okay. All right. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor of approving the resolution, please indicate. And it is unanimous. Thank you. All right, that's it for actions, information, and reports, committee and representative reports. Ms. Murray, Finance?
Finance Board, in our packet, we received, the board packet, there is a calendar. We have a draft of the calendar for the budget, upcoming budget. Which is, I don't think there's anything new, we're just trying to start to, within this time of the year. The calendar, have we already sent out the budget packets to, where's it,
Yes, to staff, the budget packets to
Yes.
staff, yes.
Oh, there is, okay, so we're on point right at this point in time.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
so I don't think there's anything else, and then our next finance committee meeting, I'm sorry, it's October 22nd.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, the calendar is very detailed, shows every step of the proceeding. I'm glad to see you're going to be having 4 focus groups with parents
Yes.
to review the budget, to get community input. And then this,
I know one is confirmed, I'm not sure if the other location.
actually, I think there's 5. I think it was Nathaniel, Westrox, Roten, Ponus Ridge, and Grace Baptist Church.
Have they been confirmed yet?
No, we're still working on it.
Okay,
Okay,
one has been confirmed, but
Okay.
the others are working on it.
good. And then this is good because you see the whole Board of Estimate schedule after that also. Good. Thank you. All right. Mr. Kasimis, reports?
Yes, I have 2 items to bring up. First one is the Norwalk Facilities Commission. We met last week, and one of the items was discussing the Roosevelt School renovations, and we approved it because it is a city project, a city building. But one of the items that came up, which I think I may have mentioned, is we have allocated $770,000 for it. Alan Lowe said it's probably going to cost about $1.5 million. And I think he said he was going to discuss it with you, Dr. Rivera.
Yeah, I believe he and I have not had the discussion.
Okay.
He may have been talking about the 2 phases.
Yep.
The preliminary estimate that an architect completed said on the low end, it's $770,000. On the high end, it's actually $2.1 million. And it was his assumption it would be somewhere in the middle. In terms of some of the more recent work that we've done, it's actually about $1 million. So it is about $300,000 more than what we actually budgeted. So we are, and we've had a preliminary conversation with the mayor and Tom Hamilton, and so we are going to have to look at how we might be able to close that gap, and it is going to need to be closed. But the 0.5, I think, it may have been a reference to Phase 2.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of the items he also brought up is that there's no communications with City Hall from that building. In other words, how all the telephone lines connect here and all the other schools. And that's something that was not accounted for. So that's probably where that
Yeah.
other extra cost is. But that's going to take a while to get in. But they're working on it. Other item is in athletics. We're having an issue with ice time, well, not ice time, but the cost of the ice time for the hockey team. Tony and I and the athletic directors have been discussing this and going back and forth with Sono Fieldhouse. We had budgeted $16,000 for practice time and games. And last year, they did not charge us for games. They only charged us for practice time, which came out to about $16,000. It's about $850 an hour, I think. No, $850 a game. $400-something an hour for practice time. Because Wayne Monis had retired in June, they were sending emails to Wayne Monis for over a month and Doug Marquetti never got them. Something, Ralph, you and I have to discuss about forwarding if somebody at that level leaves. And unfortunately, they kept sending emails to Wayne, and since Wayne was gone, no one got them. And so they were under the assumption that we were okay with them charging us for games this year. And that's what they're doing, which is a big change from last year. So it would have cost us, I believe it was $8,000 more. Doug met with them and went back and forth, changed some games, changed some practice times, but we still come up short. We need another $4,000 in order to have a complete hockey season. So that's something I'm going to ask you guys for. If anybody wants to write a check out for $4,000. But we're going to need the money in order for them to have their season this year.
All right, so we'll
We've done the
anticipate
best we can, yeah.
seeing a transfer request.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kasimis. Update on curriculum and instruction. We had a very good meeting last week that discussed a wide variety of topics. I would say that the focus, a lot of these topics were brought up by Ms. Harris, that in addition to all of the various goals that we've set up, her questions, and we had a very good discussion about them, was how to improve our handling of student and parent complaints, making sure that we are monitoring student progress, that we are, based on monitoring, we heard a lot about that tonight, that we have plans to intervene with students when problems are identified and not, wait till the end of the year, as well as current plan steps for behavior intervention. We had some very good updates from the staff. Dr. Rivera and his staff brought us up to speed on a lot of plans that they've got in this regard. And we said, this is great stuff, and we'll see you in 6 months for an update to make sure all these things are actually being done. Let's see, Ms. Keyes, policy.
I think we discussed a lot tonight on policy, which is good, a lively discussion on that. One thing I do want to mention, we did have Diane Loricella as a guest speaker for policy, and she did speak a lot about school recycling and what we need to do and what we need to improve upon that. I believe she's already met with Dr. Rivera. I know she's working with the city, with Mayor Rilling, and she is a true environmentalist and really cares about the environment. So we really need to make sure that we're recycling the way we should be. So she just gave a lot of information on what we need to do and excuse me, and how we need to be more proactive to make sure that other than the children, but the staff, the students at the school, but the staff really understand the importance of recycling and how to do that. And she did mention about educating a lot of staff members on what they need to do and what bins to use and how we need to proceed. But it is a really huge issue that's been going on for quite some time. And I know we have the large bins and, which item goes in which bin. But again, we need to educate more of our staff as well as our students in the schools to make sure that's happening. And I know again that she's working closely with you, Mayor Rilling, as well. And our next, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, our next policy meeting will be October 28th.
Okay, thank you. Negotiations, Mr. Barbas.
Okay, so
Got a big one down tonight.
the NFEP was done. That was, we voted on last meeting. This meeting, NASA is done, and we voted on the current negotiations. Well, we've been negotiating with the teachers. I think we've been talking about this for a while because we negotiated all summer. Unfortunately, we did not come to a negotiated agreement. And so we are now in the state established process for going to arbitration, trying to schedule the 3 arbitrators, the attorneys for both sides, proved very, very challenging. So we are right at the tail end of the allowed arbitration hearing period. And so that is the 14th, which is a week from today. That arbitration will start at 8 in the morning. And, we've had some ongoing discussions with the NFT, but as of yet, we don't have anything, we're planning to go to arbitration. On the food service workers, you've heard me discuss that as well. That has been very challenging to set up the appointments. They kind of aren't around in the summer. We've had, I don't know why, but it's been but we did meet today. And we made some progress, and they are the last remaining bargaining unit not on an HSA. Not that many of their employees have health insurance provided by us, but a number of them do. And so we're waiting to get a little information from our insurance provider, just detailing a little more for them. And we have set another date for our negotiations, which will be on the 21st, so 2 weeks from today. And we feel pretty confident we can get something agreed to by that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Harris, any report?
Well, Manny and I both attended the Norwalk Acts meeting today. There was quite a bit of conversation, but I think the bottom line is they're trying to define themselves and to basically define themselves in a language that's not ambiguous so that community members, parents, and everyone can understand what the acronyms are and what the basic definition is. I don't know if Manny wants to add anything, but that's basic.
No, I think they're also evolving. They've shared for a year and honed the outcomes that they have for children, which are in sync with our outcomes. And they have these implementation groups, action networks, or CANs, they call them, and that are focused in particular areas such as pre-K. But I think there's, as Commissioner Harris said, there's a lot more work to do in terms of the connectivity that needs to be clear to the public, what the work is that's going to get us to those outcomes, and how do we properly measure and track our success collectively as a community from one year to the next. And I was sitting there thinking, that's similar to what we're going through at a board level with trying to draw and make really clear the strategies that we're putting in place to get to student outcomes, and trying to use language that people can understand, and it's not just educational jargon that kind of goes one ear and out the other.
So for anyone who's not familiar with what the outcomes are, I'm still becoming acquainted as well, but basically they will, this is my cheat sheet. Well, it will affect 6 community level outcomes, and as Manny said, they're very similar to ours. It's kindergarten readiness, achieving goals for 3rd grade reading levels, transitioning successfully from 5th to 6th grade, and from 8th to 9th grade, preparing graduates for college, training in post-secondary training and full-time employment, and preparing graduates for careers through college degrees or certification.
Okay.
So that's basically.
Gonna give you that.
Cheat sheet too. And actually, I do have that too.
All right, thank you. Mr. Germani, facilities?
Got together with Superintendent Manny Rivera and Rick Rudel on Monday. We didn't have a full quorum, so there was nothing to be voted on. It was just basically that our RFP went out, which we already voted on to send it out.
Okay. This is for the facility study? Okay.
Facility studies.
All right. All right, thank you.
Mike, I'm sorry, I failed to mention that Mayor Rowley was there as well.
Okay. Duly noted. Ms. Mosby?
Yeah, since we're talking about reports, within the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple of incidents that took place, one at Brian McMahon and another at Kendall. And I wasn't aware of it, and the only reason why I became aware was through media, through the news and the paper. So I was wondering, basically, since we've added more staff to central office at this time, we used to get something that was called like a superintendent written report or a Friday report that gave us information as to what's going on in the school. And I'm not saying this is something for the superintendent to do, but since he has staff there, that maybe someone can pick that up and start putting the information together to share with us, so that we won't be caught off guard. Because if I didn't watch TV and I didn't read in the newspaper, I would not have known about those incidents. And as board members, we should be informed as to what's going on in our schools at basically all the time. So if we can start, implementing something like that, to start giving us reports, and it was done under two other superintendents, so that will be helpful, and it will eliminate a lot of us trying to guess as to what's going on, or hearing things that we're not aware of.
I think earlier, Mr. Dodona and the secretary, Ms. Rivera, used to send out incidents, like if something happened, if the ambulance was called, and things like that. I'm not sure what happened, but I remember they used to send out updates.
Yeah, I believe, I'm happy to convene a meeting with my staff tomorrow with Brenda and Tony and Pat, and take a look at this and make sure we can be clear about who's sending and not be confused, thinking one person did, another person didn't. So I'm happy to revisit that and make sure that, especially, obviously, and I know we've done this in the past, but perhaps not as consistently as we should have. Anytime there's an incident that we know is going to become public and it hits the hour, and with the social media today, everything's all over the place within minutes anyway. So we will attend to that.
And it doesn't have to be incidents. It could be anything that's good that's going on. We don't want to make it seem like it's always negative. It's just that it would be nice to know what's going on in our schools. And for us to have that knowledge, so when we're out there and we're meeting the public and they're talking about something, whether it's good, bad, whatever, at least we are well informed and we can have a decent conversation with people instead of, standing out there like, so, so some kind of, they used to do it. It was like a Friday report or a superintendent written report. And I'm not saying every time something goes crazy, but maybe something can be sent to us so that we can get caught up on what's going on in our school system.
Okay. Any board member announcements?
I don't have any board member announcements, but I do want to piggyback on the Finance Committee. One of our members did mention for the focus groups that if we can get the publicity out to the public sooner rather than later, because we know that we're coming upon time for people's schedules are very tight, parents who have commitments, other jobs. So the sooner we can get that focus group schedule publicized in the buildings and in the community, the better we will be, and looking forward to full participation. Okay? And that was discussed by one of our members.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I
Ms.
answer
Keys?
that, though? Ms. Murray, is there going to be like a flyer or something that's going to go home in backpacks for children, so parents are aware of it and they can attend?
That would be something that the Director
Yes.
of Communications would decide how it's done.
Okay.
But
That's a
we
suggestion,
know
I
that
think.
time is of essence, and that's why we're saying, I believe it was Mr. Barbers who brought it up at our committee meeting, and the fact of that, people are already, scheduled very heavily in their personal lives, so, and we're looking at the elementary schools, the feeder schools coming into the middle schools. So I do believe we've done, what you're talking about, the fly's been done over the years. So I'm sure there's no reason why it couldn't be done again. But I think we need to look at maybe some other ways that we can get the word out in the community, because I said,
And we do have a flyer started, and we'll get that to them, the way we'll go, as
Great.
well as on the website and through the media and through social media as well.
and also, is there other ways, any other ways that you can think of, Brenda, that might be new, innovative ways to communicate with our community? I would look forward to hearing what those are.
Through some of our, through some of the school messenger type of programs that we talked about, some of the parent messengers that are out in the community as well, that we talked about in our walk acts today as well, so.
And even the PTOs, letting them, the PTO meetings.
PTOs,
Because that's where you'll get a lot of parent participation.
I think we're going to go a little beyond that in this particular scope. We are looking for the public input. The superintendent really hears from that population, and that's what we're going to try to encourage, so that you have a diverse audience. So the thoughts are coming from a variety of individuals from the community. We know what we hear every year. The board members who've been here know what we hear on a regular basis. So we're just thinking we need to kind of step out of the box a little bit on this one. So just look forward to something that might be a little new and innovative, and that's why I'm asking the Director of Communication if she would just look into that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kasimis?
At the last meeting, I had promised the mayor one of those special golden passes that lets you in every single game for free. That the rest of the board members got. And Mr. Mataferri said if the mayor gets charged to go to any of the games, you let him know.
All right.
So then he will get you a special pass.
Actually, I paid to get into the band committee,
Did you?
the competition, but that's all right.
Get your credit.
And then we,
I'll get you a pass.
I'm not worried.
Any other board member announcements?
Yes.
Mike?
I'm not so much an announcement as a question. So I understand there's this big competition going on right now, and I don't know what the wager is, but I'm sure there are 9 of us or 8 of us tonight that are here that could be bought. And neither of these, neither have asked. This is the mentor competition.
Oh, okay, the mentor.
The mayor and the superintendent. And granted, we probably all 8 of us, as well as McDowell, have more on our hands than we have time for. But, you know, we would definitely like to help you if we can in this
Budget time.
competition. We'd like to know how.
Budget time is coming.
The mayor can't beat me on this one.
I know.
All right, thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the September 16, 2014 meeting. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. Kasimis moves. Is there a second? Ms. Keys seconds. Any changes, corrections? I'll note one myself. On page 4 and 5, we have the detailed discussion of the new contract for the NFEP, and then there's no mention of the vote. I know we voted to approve it, so I don't remember exactly what the vote was, but it's got to be on the tape, so if you could check that and just make sure the vote to approve the NFEP contract is in there, that would be appreciated. Any other corrections, Ms. Keys?
I did notice as far as staff, or not staff, but in attendance, Mayor Rilling was here, and I don't show his name on here.
We cross that off every time.
So I don't get any mentors.
We will duly note the mayor's attendance.
Thank you.
All right, any other corrections? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed, abstentions, 3 abstentions, and the meeting minutes are approved. Okay, Chair would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation in the matter of Diaco versus Norwalk Board of Ed, and for the purpose of discussing appointment of principal for Cranberry Elementary School. Mr. Kasimis moves. Is there a second? No second?
Second.
Mr. Chairmani seconds. All in favor? Okay, meeting, we are in executive session, and we'll take a 5-minute recess as usual. All right. Very
Ready? Yeah.
He's ready.
We good?
We good.
Okay, we're going back to item 6.4, appointment of principal of Cranberry Elementary School. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Kristen Goldstein as principal of Cranberry Elementary School. Is there such a motion? Ms. Keys moves. Mr. Chairmonti seconds. Is there discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor, please indicate. And that is 7 yes, all opposed, abstentions? 1 abstention. 7 yes, no, 1 abstention. Motion carries, appointment is approved. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kasimis, second by Mr. Chairmani, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Yay.
This isn't bad, 10:30, I thought we might be here till midnight with that agenda that long.
10:40 to be precise.
I got everything all signed for you there. There's your pen, thank you for the extra, I appreciate it.